Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin here at the Calvert Marine Museum. We are going to do a cold weather marsh walk today. I'd like you to join me. Follow me this way through the marsh. When we are in a marsh in colder weather, it can appear like there's not much going on. The marsh is in a state of dormancy. The plants have started to become brown. Things have withered a little bit. But there's still so much going on here. So if we look over here into the marsh, first of all, something I couldn't do in warmer weather, I can see to the bottom. The cooler temperatures have caused most of that thick algae at the surface to die back, and we can see to the bottom. And there are a few fish who are out right now. The sun is overhead. It's about noontime right now, so the sun is out in full effect. It has warmed this up really quickly. I came to do a test walk this morning. There was nothing going on here. It was too cold. The fish got sluggish and slow, and now they've warmed up and they're looking for food. They're eating bits of plants. Now, I'm sure a lot of your families have been doing yard work, raking up leaves, that kind of stuff. It washes into the marsh too, but in the marsh, it sinks to the bottom and it's food. So we see all these fallen leaves. It's not junk or anything like that in the marsh. This is high quality food that will continue to feed things through the winter. We're gonna take a walk further in. So a lot of the plant life has really died back. There's still some green shoots here and there, but once we get into the really cold freezing temperatures, we won't see that anymore. The plants aren't dead though. They're just in a state of dormancy. So their roots down in the mud are really deep. They're called rhizomes. They're gonna stay buried. They're gonna stay there, ready for the temperatures to warm up in the spring, and then everything will come back. Things can continue to feast on them. When it gets cold enough for the marsh to actually freeze over, when the ice washes in, it's going to act like a lawnmower and it's actually going to shear all of this stuff off and it will look really bare. The important thing to remember is when all of those plants fall back into the water, they're going to wash very needed nutrients out into the deeper parts of the bay. They're going to feed the animals there. They're going to create almost like a brew or a tea that is really going to make the young fish in the springtime very happy. It's going to give them all the food they need. The live guests that you'll probably see here are waterfowl. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what they're doing and why they don't leave when everything else gets so quiet and cold. The mud of the marsh is hiding all sorts of things. Worms, fiddler crabs, clams, these have all gone torpid. They're in a state of dormancy. They can't really move. They don't respond to much. The ducks know they're there. And so they'll come and they'll dabble. They'll go down into the mud and they'll dig for those worms, those clams, those small crabs, and they can continue to eat at least until the mud freezes. Then they have a harder time looking. But it's always a good time to come looking, especially for waterfowl. Another thing you can start to see as the grass dies back, you can start to see things like there is a burrow from a muskrat that I can make out in the center here. A hole that I wouldn't have been able to see when the grass was really thick and lush. When the grass dies back, you can really explore in the marshes. You can walk back. You can see where the freshwater sources are. Things you wouldn't have noticed, details you wouldn't have noticed in the lush green season. So it's a really good time for a hike to go exploring, and the small birds never leave. So you will always be able to hear bird song. You will always be able to see birds, especially if you bring your binoculars with you. And that is something that you can do on a cold weather marsh walk. Thanks for joining me today.